This is an oil history interview from Mystic Seaport Museum. The narrator is Mr. Elmer Millenbach. The interviewer is Fred Calabretta. The date is June 1st, 1989, and we're at Mr. Mlllenbach's home in Detroit, Michigan. Okay, just to start, could you just give your full name and your date and place of birth, just so we have it for the record?
Elmer Millenbach. Born February 21st, 1912, which is a couple of years ago. I would meet them. At this time I was going to some of the iceboat meetings, which went on practically year-round. And I didn't belong to the iceboat group, but I had a friend that wanted to build an iceboat. Well, two of them, in fact, that wanted to build iceboats, and the cheapest thing to build was a DN. But I couldn't find out what a DN was. They had plans for them, but a friend of mine with number 38 DN built his with crown in the deck, and a crown in the after deck too. And it was a cute little thing. I mean, it made all the difference in the world between just having a box and having a good-looking boat. And of course, the DN to begin with was I think it was made for somebody that has a summer cottage and that they go out to in the wintertime and let the kids have a toy to play with, and they could hardly get hurt on it. All the thing could do was tip over and go sliding along the ice. But of course the DNs are just like anything else. You get enough kiddie cars together and pretty soon there's a race. And of course anything in sailing is racing. You know, about the stupidest thing to race is a surfboard. But they'll race them. And they go like hell. But anyway, I was going to build a DN. We were going to build three of them.
Had you done any ice boating at that point, or?
Well, no, the only ice boating I'd done was somebody gave me an ice boat that they used to keep in front of our house. And the ice was starting to break up in the early spring or late winter. So they just made me a gift of it rather than all the thing home. Well, you can imagine what it was worth. But in fact, it was so late that I couldn't even salvage it off the ice. It went down the river when the ice broke up. But I built one when I was about 9 years old. I built it in manual training class in school. And I had an instructor that would let me do anything I wanted. But I had to buy a 2x4, which I used for the backbone, and used the big thing was skates or runners, and I salvaged some old clamp-on skates and mounted them on blocks of wood and put them at an angle. And for the steering runner, I had to have a V on it, of course, because you had to use the V rather than use one angle of a 90. So I would take that thing out on a concrete street, you know, and get it down to where I could work it with a file or a stone, but get the most of it off by scraping it on the concrete, and mount it on the rear. Of course, nobody ever heard of a front steerer then. But anyway, to get back to this DN thing, we bought lumber for 3 DNs. And we had to wait. This one fellow was buying the house, and we had to wait for the closing in October till we could get in the house to start building the ice boats. And everything was improvised. You know, we had an old bench that was falling apart that we salvaged from some building that was finished, and they weren't hauling the stuff, everything they brought in there away. So they just threw it out, and we salvaged it and used this old bench. And the only tool we had was an arbor that we bought with a saw blade on the end of it, and I got hold of a 1/4 horsepower motor, and they were like hound's teeth. Trying to find a motor. That was, of course, just before the war, and but we improvised everything. Like the mast, we hollowed out with a gouge chisel, and I remember that mast weighed 12 pounds, and as the work progressed, I kept going to the Detroit Ice Yacht Club meetings, and one day somebody came out with a 10-foot runner plank, and everybody thought, oh, well, that's great. But they accepted it, and until he won a race, then, oh, that's not kosher anymore. But they couldn't make up their mind what a DN was. Well, then this friend of mine with number 38 won a race. Well, no, they didn't allow the crown in the deck. So that salvaged the whole, put the whole project down the drain as far as I was concerned. So here we had this lumber, and I had the sails ordered. I had 3 sails ordered, and in fact, the sailmaker, it was kind of a joke along the riverfront. Of course, they were still using canvas. I mean, there was no such thing as nylon. And they used Italian hemp for the luff rope. And there were sails out there that were 20 years old that were never stretched out. The rope was so short it kept the luff all puckered up, and they never would stretch out. So I talked to this guy. I said, you know, maybe you think I'm a crackpot, but I'm ordering these 3 sails, and I would like enough of this Italian hemp luff rope that you're putting in there that I'll stretch it out. And when I give it back to you, you can put it in these sails, and remember, don't allow for any stretch in it, because the stretch is going to be gone. So, well, he humored me and made them up. But anyway, here I had 3 DN sails on my, and incidentally, they specified a certain weight sailcloth. All of a sudden, they're putting restrictions on these DNs. So I had 8-ounce Wamsutta ordered, and horizontal battens instead of the crazy things they put in there now, and 5 horizontal battens. And so, of course, the batten pockets were put in the sail, and here I am stuck with these 3 sails. Well, at that time, they cost $32 a piece, which, you know, that was a pretty good chunk of dough. You weren't making that much money in a week on your job. So I thought, well, the hell with it. I'm not going to make one of those DNs. Well, I was a little bit disillusioned with the DNs because I happened to be down at Lakeside when the day they put them on the ice. And it was blowing about, I would say 25 miles an hour. And you get going on a beam wind with an iceboat at 25 miles an hour, and you got your hands full. So the guys that had them were, some of them weren't sailors, but they wanted to see their boat go. And of course, the sailors down there were used to these big things that you horse in. So they'd go out, and as soon as they get the sail trimmed, the fuselage broke in two. And they only had 6-inch side panels on them. The things were designed for, as I say, somebody that has a summer cottage, and so they go out in the winter, the pond's frozen over, the lake's frozen over, and the kid wants to go out and have some fun. He can go back and forth all day as long as they don't trim that thing down, and have a picnic with it. But when you start racing them, they come apart. So, and for their size, they were, God, they had so-called 60 square feet of sail, and they had much more than that. They had a little more than that, and they had 14 inches of roach on that. And they were overpowered like crazy when the wind blew. So anyway, I gave up on the DN. So I thought, well, here we got this lumber, and I got out, literally, I got out a breadboard and some shelf paper and a ruler and designed my own boat. And I got down on the floor with a yardstick and, oh, well, I want the deck to come here. That's 16 inches. It's got to be this wide. That's 20 inches. I got to have enough room to move. That's 20 inches. And then I laid out the lines, and it came out to 17.5 feet long to make everything look right. And then I took the DN60 sail plan on another piece of paper and superimposed that over it, and designed my boat. Well, when I got finished with it, I took it out on the ice, and it was late, well, about 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, and everybody had quit sailing because there was no wind. Well, I got in mine, and the thing just took off. And everybody's standing around with their mouth open. How does this thing go? And anyway, the thing was phenomenal, except I made I had some skates I was experimenting with. I still don't know why they didn't work. I had angle iron on spruce. Of course, everything was made light. The thing had no chines in it. It didn't need them. And the bulkheads were out of 1/8 plywood. And of course, it was light as a feather. And with these spruce runners and the angle iron, I had this way and the edge sharpened, and I only had one edge, the inside edge, sharp. Well, if they weren't lined up perfect, you can imagine how much drag they'd have had if they were towed in. And we didn't have any scientific way of aligning them except with a tape measure. But so when I found out these runners, for some reason, when that thing would hike, the back end would slide out on it. So I thought, well, I'll go to conventional and make, put conventional edges on them. And the front runner, I had a piece of channel iron that was just sharpened on the inside. And now that seemed to work pretty good, probably because there wasn't much side strain on it. But so I made a set of conventional skates with T-iron, and oh God, they were great. They were so light, and I made them a little bit longer than the DN plan called for, and they went like crazy. And oh God, that boat would go. Well,